Super Mario 64 was on the forefront of the 3D gaming era, being released all the way back in 1996. Of course, there was 3D games that came before it, but Super Mario 64's fluid controls and amazing colorful graphics, or at least what were fluid controls and amazing graphics for the time, helped set it apart from other 3D games. The look of Super Mario 64 is iconic, and even younger gamers have played it, or at least know of it and what it looks like. However, as with most games, Super Mario 64 went through a lot of changes in development before it was officially released, with footage of Mario 64 being shown at events like Space World 95 looking drastically different from what we got in the final game. Hey guys, Astral Antonio here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the beta version of Mario 64, as well as the development. There's plenty to look at here, and I was able to find a decent amount of beta footage on YouTube. I'll be linking the main video I used down below. Now, I don't want to waste any more time, so let's hop right into the beta of Super Mario 64. Before we start talking about the beta of Super Mario 64, I want to talk about the Super Nintendo real quick, the Super FX chip to be exact. The Super FX chip, called the Super Mario FX chip while in development, was a chip that was developed to be used in certain Super Nintendo cartridges. Games with the chip installed had the ability to display 3D graphics in a way that a normal Super Nintendo game couldn't. To give probably the most famous example of a game that utilized the Super FX chip, take a look at Star Fox. The polygonal graphics it contains wouldn't have been possible without the use of the FX chip. Anyways, the only reason I bring it up is because the Super FX chip, which you're probably tired of hearing me say its name by now, is because in the early 90s, the 3D graphics it enabled got Shigeru Miyamoto thinking about developing a 3D Mario game, but Miyamoto realized that the Super Nintendo wouldn't have been the best platform for the 3D Mario game he wanted to make, so he put the idea on the back burner until 1994, when the development of the Nintendo 64 was underway. With the Nintendo 64's greater processing power and its superior controller, Miyamoto's idea for a 3D Mario game was made possible. Like I said earlier in the intro of this video, Super Mario 64 first started being shown to the public in 1995 at events like Space World. If we take a look at the version of Mario 64 that was being shown, we can see plenty of visual differences to the final version of the game. Let's start by taking a look at the castle's exterior, of which the most jarring difference is the lack of Princess Peach's iconic stained glass portrait on the front of the castle. In its place is this bland looking circular window thing. Looking at the other windows on the castle, they appear slightly different too. If you were expecting the castle's interior to look at least somewhat similar to the final castle, you're wrong, because the castle's interior has a darker theme to it than the final version, with the walls being dark blue and featuring stars and moons rather than the inviting daytime look of the final version. The layout in the beta is different too, with doors being in different spots and leading to completely different levels. Probably the biggest difference in the castle's interior is the lack of stairs, with where the stairs would end up being having 3 platforms instead. Some of the paintings were different too, such as the painting for Jolly Roger Bay, simply featuring bubbles instead of a sunken ship, Whomp's Fortress looking like this, and Cool Cool Mountain's painting featuring an actual mountain, rather than a painting of the snowman, which honestly kinda makes more sense considering that the level Cool Cool Mountain is, unsurprisingly, a large snowy mountain. Moving on from how different the castle looked, the HUD also looked extremely different. Take a look at Mario's health display for instance. It has an arrow and a number on it that will go down or up depending on whether or not you're gaining or losing health. This looks vastly different to the final version that we know, with Mario's head being a circle split into segments, which I'm going to call pizza slices solely because Mario's Italian. The lives, coin, and star counters all look different too, featuring different sprites from the final version, with the star and coin sprites closer representing the actual beta versions of the stars and coins respectively, with the stars looking like a 2D animated sprite, and the coins not featuring a star on them like the final coins, instead looking more similar to the coins in more modern Mario games. The lives counter features a more simple / cartoony look to it, being this little drawing of Mario. Now, looking at the beta footage for some of the levels, we can see some vast and not so vast differences to the levels seen in the final game. Most of the differences are texture related, with the beta textures looking surprisingly detailed in comparison to the final textures. I have heard some people say they prefer the beta textures, but I honestly prefer the textures that they ended up using. But hey, that could just be nostalgia talking. Anyways, some of the levels had bigger differences than just the textures, the most extreme example of this being Cool Cool Mountain, which appears to have a completely different layout in the beta, with the biggest thing standing out to me being this weird pyramid looking thing behind the kinda depressed looking penguin. Not only does the penguin look different, but other entities such as enemies look quite different as well. The main enemies I want to point out being the Thwomp, who looks slightly more agitated than normal, and the Whomp, who just looks ridiculous. I mean, look at that face. That's clearly the face of an enemy you don't want to mess with. The boos look different too, with their design more closely resembling designs used before and after Mario 64, and personally, I like it a lot better. For some reason, the boos also originally had keys inside of them, which presumably would have been used to open different doors around Big Boo's haunt. One last enemy whose design was changed is the Grindles, whose only difference was that they used to practice better dental care. I mean, look at those pearly whites. Bro needs his own Colgate commercial. Anywho, not only did the enemies appear different, but there are also enemies that were just straight up cut from the game. The most famous example of this being Blarg, who was supposed to appear in Lethal Lava Land, and possibly Bowser in the Fire Sea. The files for Blarg are still in the final game, however, his implementation was never finished, so if you do put him in, all he'll do is just kinda bob up and down in the lava. Also, he doesn't have eyes. Just thought I'd point that out. Other removed enemies I want to bring up are the Motos and the small chill bully. The Motos look pretty cool, and I think they were supposed to be in Lethal Lava Land. They were supposed to charge at Mario and pick him up before throwing him, similar to the Chuckyas or King Bob-omb. The chill bullies were just going to be a smaller version of the big chill bully found in Snowman's Land, and would have been similar to the bullies found in Lethal Lava Land. Before Nintendo had casted the legendary Charles Martinet as the iconic voice of Mario, Nintendo used filler voices from the Warner Bros. Sound library. It was a lot more high-pitched and ear-grating than Charles's voice. Here, take a listen. See, that's annoying. But again, it was only a temporary voice that they used before they got a voice actor for Mario. Also, instead of a triple jump, Mario used to do this weird spin thingy, which is the same animation they used in the final game when Mario jumps on a spin drift. I'm running out of things to talk about here, but before I finish this video, I want to talk about some of the items that were removed from the game, such as this pink flower that was supposed to be found in Lethal Lava Land for some reason, and these red and green Koopa shells that were supposedly supposed to be used to throw at enemies, with their behavior mimicking that of the shells in Mario Kart, where the green shell goes straight and the red shell targeting the nearest enemy. There's also this yellow switch, which some people say was supposed to unlock another power-up, but personally I think it might have been used to unlock the rideable Koopa shell. The most important, or at least the most interesting removed item, is this Yoshi egg, hinting at the fact that Yoshi may have been planned to be rideable in Super Mario 64, instead of being useless and giving you extra lives after you already beat the game. I don't need more lives, Yoshi. I already got all the stars. Now go jump off the castle roof. Anyways, the last thing I want to talk about today is the removed multiplayer feature. Multiplayer is going to consist of Mario and Luigi running around and adventuring together, but Miyamoto and his team couldn't find a good way to implement this. However, Luigi's incomplete model was found in the files of the famous 2401 leak, so there's that, I guess. Anyways, that's about all I have to say for this video, so let's cut to the end slate. Hey everyone, Astral Antonio here, and you just got done watching my video about the Super Mario 64 beta, or at least I think you did. It'd be kinda weird if you just skipped to the end slate, but hey, I promise I won't judge you. Maybe. Anyways, I'm sorry I didn't post last week. Some stuff came up that kinda threw a wrench in my plans, but that won't happen this week. Hopefully. The next video I'm going to put out is going to be a Pokemon Iceberg, so if you're interested in that, or if you liked this video, please subscribe, as I'll continue to upload plenty more videos, and I would love to have you along for the journey. On the screen now, or whenever the hell they're going to appear, are two videos that I want to recommend this time around. The first one being my Iceberg on Super Mario 64, and the second one being my video that covered why Super Mario Bros. 2 was so different from the other Mario games. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy those videos too. I think. Anyways, that's about all I have time for. This has been Astral Antonio. Stay tuned. Thanks.